Welcome to Dog Day Afternoon. I'm Gilles Gallant with BetsTV. You can follow me on Twitter at GDog5000. And welcome to the betting show where we're going to be talking some NFL, some sports tips, picks, leans, thoughts. We were on a little bit of a 2-week hiatus for the holiday break. We're going to maybe give a few picks along the way. Main thing I love to stress before I even introduce my guests is we do not take things too seriously around here. Again, this is a football betting show. There's going to be no divisive topics unless we're going to be talking about him being a Giants fan and me being a Cowboys fan. That's about as divisive as it's going to get. We're going to cover the latest odds. Week 18, Tino. We're going to give a platform here to talk about these kind of odds here. I want to introduce this guest here because I don't think enough people know about this guy. I'm a big fan of him, and he appears on a lot of FTNNetwork shows. This is Tino Rodriguez, and I think people need to know who he is because he is, to me, the MVP of FTN because he produces almost every show under the FTN banner along with BetsTV as well, appears on shows like on Mean Streets or Betting with Benny as well, and other shows. Even today, just was last minute. I asked him if he could fill in right there for me. He is the Swiss Army knife of FTNNetwork. Tino Rodriguez, welcome to the show.
That's one of the best intros I've ever received. So thank you. I appreciate that. I don't know about MVP because, there is a chink in my armor here as I hang a Daniel Jones jersey behind me. You made the joke already. I'm over here trying to think of a clever tweet. I think that's where my fault is. I can't think of a clever tweet on how to respond. How do you fix the Giants? Where do I start? What comment suffices as answering that question? I don't know. I was going to say you don't. That's pretty much the only way I look at it, but it's a pleasure to come on. I know we don't take things too serious around here because I run the show and I know the way things go here, but I'm excited. We have no Giants futures, but we do have a futures. I'll tease myself. You have a futures on here that I do have a real life preseason futures on. I'd love to talk about.
Well, two things I'll clarify. The M and MVP is just more valuable. You're more valuable than me, in my opinion, not most. So we'll clarify that. And then secondly, there is a little bit of Giants talk at the end. As far as how to fix it, we'll see. Maybe you might have an answer. Maybe I might have an answer. I'm not really sure here. But that being said, I think we just need to get going right into the show because, Tino, it's week 18. This is our first week 18 ever. I've never had a week 18 of a regular season before. And honestly, you can feel it. Like just with the grind of the season, just being an extra 7 days, you could just see the toll that the entire season is kind of starting to take on people as we get closer to the finish line. So I don't think I need to introduce this topic to you, but I'm going to do it anyway for our viewers. We like to do a little bit of hot takes right off the top. We like to call it apparently. So, Tino, apparently, Chiefs-Packers Super Bowl is all but guaranteed because right now, just looking at the latest Super Bowl odds, Pack are plus 350 favorites. Chiefs are right behind them at plus 500, and reigning Super Bowl champion Tampa Bay at plus 750 in third. So here's my case. I just want to say that why I think this is all but guaranteed, and you can let me know if you think I'm wrong. So if you just look at the contenders, let's start with the NFC, whether or not the Packers are going to finally break through the NFC Championship drought and get to the Super Bowl instead of choking 2 years in a row. The Bucs, too many injuries. I just can't see it happening now at this stage. I just think there's too many injuries on the offensive front that Brady can't carry them the way that he could maybe in his mid-40s. I guess he's almost 50 now, whatever. Now, the Rams, can you really trust Stafford at this point? I feel like there's just too many turnovers to trust him in big spots. Like, I don't even know if really the Rams won against the Ravens this past Sunday. They won in spite of him is kind of what I was going for here. Finally, we'll go to Arizona. Kingsbury's questionable decision-making, and I think Kyler is a little too brittle, and the Cowboys don't even get me started. So that's the Packers side. And then on this AFC side, the Bills can't run the ball. The Pats can't pass the ball. And is Derrick Henry coming back for the Titans? Like, I keep hearing that he's going to come back. And will it even matter? So that's I'm just looking at all these contenders. There's too many warts on these guys. Tino, is it apparent as to me that we're going to get a Chiefs-Packers Super Bowl this year?
Well, that was my call last year, and I was this close. I had a nice little preseason. Yeah, well, Aaron Rodgers not running the ball in, and then the field goal, of course. Let's not forget.
I remember that.
It's deja vu. I was just on Mean Streets talking to Meanie about this, Chris Meanie, and you can check that over at the FTN Network YouTube channel. I know we're on BetsTV here, but I don't see how it is in the Packers year. And obviously, this is the last dance, which I still think is absolutely ridiculous for them to call it because you're not the Chicago Bulls. But, the last year, all this and that, but they're really geared up to make this run in a favorable in favorable matchups going in. They have the only bye, which is going to be huge, mainly
Mhm.
because if you look at everyone in the NFC division right now in the playoff race, they're all West Coast teams. They're all sunny teams.
Yeah.
Tampa doesn't want to go to Green Bay. San Francisco, LA, Arizona doesn't want to go to LA. Dallas is a dome team. Philly's the only one who actually has experienced the cold, and they got to battle from the 7 or the 6. So they're geared up. I think they have a really good running game with A.J. Dillon and Aaron Jones. No one's going to want to tackle A.J. Dillon in the postseason. I think if you saw their last game against the Vikings, they finally did with, I think, a lot of teams, and I'll reference it to the Giants. You have this high-priced running back in Aaron Jones, and everyone's like, you got to utilize him. But there's no shame in letting A.J. Dillon beat up the defense and then bringing Aaron Jones in on third down and then keep him on there, right? So I think right now they're pounding the ball with A.J. Dillon really well. I think it's what they got to do if they want to win in the postseason. I know they have Aaron Rodgers and Devontae Adams. That's all good, but you got to run the ball. And, the Bucs getting hurt at the right time for them right now. So, other than the Bucs, I didn't see anyone really being a fraud in the NFC. And if we want to talk AFC, I have a futures on the Chiefs at plus 750 earlier this season. So I'm glad I was able to get that where it was compared to where it is now. And I had to wait. I got that, I think, when they had 4 losses or maybe right after when they went to 500 because they were still favored or they were still a top 3 team even when they were losing because Vegas didn't buy the hype that everyone else was on. Thing with the Chiefs is, I see them getting there. I feel good about the futures. I just think the AFC is a little more loaded and have some teams coming out of the wild card that could shake some things up, right? I think the NFC, like you see it now, predictable. You see the teams in right now. It's San Francisco versus New Orleans. There's a lot that can still happen in the AFC. Obviously, it's like the Raiders-Chargers thing right now. Those are divisional opponents to the Chiefs. Maybe they see one of them and there's a little divisional rivalry and, we don't see it coming, but I don't know. I think there's more uncertainty actually with the Chiefs than there is the Packers. I think the Packers are getting to the championship. It's a matter of who the NFC championship. It's a matter of who they play and if, they can finally get over that hump.
Yeah, with the NFC, I think you summed it up perfectly. Like the NFC, I can't really just see like AFC. I could probably make a little bit more of a justification. I mean, we did just watch the Chiefs lose 31-30 like this past week, to the Bengals. So obviously they can lose comparatively to the Packers, who seemingly it feels like they haven't lost since week 2, even though obviously they do have another loss, but they haven't lost since like the opening week. It's just basically been Packers just demolishing teams, or even like being able to beat teams when they were super short-handed, like when they went on the road to Arizona and basically had no Devontae Adams, no Lazard, no MVS, and were still able to eke out a win there. The Chiefs, I would say probably of that equation, probably a little more worrisome just because let's say they host the Colts. Let's just say that could probably be a little bit of a matchup issue, being able to stop Jonathan Taylor if he gets off to a hot start. Carson Wentz, even though we know him as doing boneheaded plays, hasn't necessarily been as turnover prone as we're used to. So, things change like that. So I think we're kind of in agreement. Chiefs Packers Super Bowl right now. Not a great bet. I mean, I think you probably will get it at like plus 400, plus 450 if you parlay the 2 conference winners. But I think of the 2, and I think that's the other thing too. If we were to set a hypothetical line, being in a neutral stadium at SoFi Stadium in Los Angeles, I think I would still make the Packers the favorite in that game between the Packers and Chiefs because we just saw the matchup. Like, remember, like Jordan Love, it's a little bit different. Like, I'm not going to use Jordan Love's performance in that game as the reason why. It's just more so the defense of both teams and the fact that it was only a 13-7 game and Aaron Rodgers did not play. So to me, that's a big indicator here. So we're going to move on to the next one. Tino, we talked about week 18 off the top about how this is the first time it's been a week 18, how the season kind of maybe feels a little bit longer than normal. And I'm maybe feeling a little bit of the toll of that in December. So, Tino, apparently football every day just can be bad for the mentals. Like the COVID rescheduling, like really from the middle of December till pretty much yesterday, all the games are kind of just blurring together. And don't get me wrong, I love football. I'm not trying to complain. I love being paid to cover NFL. But the fact remains, you see this video every time. I'm getting a little bit of cabin fever here shooting in this. And I kind of almost feel like with this so much NFL, like it's like eating pizza every day. Like by the 5th day, it's still good. But, oh, man, don't you start to get maybe just a little sick of it.
Well, for me, football every day just means there's parlays and bets to lose, right? And for me, and it's funny, if you check out Betting with Benny and Tino, I feel like you a lot where you have to justify when you're playing, when you're doing player props. I think I'm like, I think I just went over, but I'm still like 22 units up on the season in terms of player props on that show. but I'm like 23 and like 38, right? So you still feel like a loser, even though you're a winner. So it's like, it's an ebb and flow. And I think what makes it harder, if I just want to talk about week 18, is that right now everyone's doing it. The guessing game. Who's going to play guys? How long are they playing? Like, this is just such an impossible week. And granted, this was happening when it was week 17 and not week 18, right? This happened before in the NFL in the last week of the season. So it's completely understandable. But right now we have a lot of that where it's like, who's going to play? Well, are we taking this team with the Cowboys and the Eagles? Or a primetime game on Saturday? Well, we saw the Eagles last year infamously hang them up, right? They hung them up for the Washington football team, even though they were winning in a game. So do we see that with Dallas? Like, how much does seeding matter? People are questioning the Bucs. It's like there's every team you can make a case for that are, inked into the playoffs other than the Saints and 49ers, which I think actually, I know we're going to allude to the 49ers soon, but the 49ers playing the Rams, I think people are overlooking it because they're saying the Rams have nothing. They have the Rams have nothing to play for, and I don't want to see the Saints in the postseason more than the next guy. I'd rather see a good matchup with the 49ers. I think they're a good enough team. But if you're the Rams, you want to beat the 49ers, no doubt. I know on paper you want to seat your guys. They don't have a bye anyways. There's no top 2 buys, and that's where they are right now. I would play my guys if I'm Los Angeles. I would play my guys at home, try to play spoiler to the 49ers and not see them potentially in the postseason and keep that momentum going. Because like you said, they barely beat a Ravens team on the road with a backup quarterback. And I mean, barely. Like if Odell doesn't have great hands and stretch that ball out over over the first down marker, we're not having this discussion on 4th and 5 right now. So,
well, I guess the question would remain is this is kind of the incentive of whether or not the Rams would play. And I have other comment here about football every day, but I just wanted to mention this. Like, if they win, if they beat San Francisco and New Orleans beats Carolina, that's who they're playing in the first round. I would, if I'm the Rams, I definitely want to play the Saints in the first round and face Taysom Hill and that garbage offense. But that's just me if I'm the Rams. So there is a little incentive to want to play and beat the Niners. Not to mention, I was going to mention this a little bit later, talking about the line. Rams have lost 5 straight times to the 49ers. Like, and it's almost like mind-boggling when you think about like one of those years being the Rams have had pretty much a winning record in both of those years too. So I just find that interesting. And I just wanted to go back about the mentals thing. And you brought up a great point about records. Basically what that means is that you're picking big plus money things. So a lot of the time when you have like a record like mine, where it's at best like 32%. So that means you're losing 65% or more regularly. Losing, like you said, can take a little bit of a toll on you. Now, if you do something like I did, like last night, where I bet all under a huge long shot touchdown bets and hit a plus 1,200 on Harrison Bryant, it's easy to get the endorphins flowing again and maybe feel a little more back in your groove kind of thing. So I think that's the one thing too, is that I think sometimes with football every day, you're right. I think one of the solutions could be is sometimes you got to just take the low-hanging fruit, maybe just take like a little easy winner that you think is a little bit there comparatively to trying to go after a plus 700 Rashard Higgins touchdown bet like I did, where he got the ball knocked out of his hands because Baker can't throw the ball that well. So, all right, so that's it. I was just going to say that week 18 had just been a bit of a grind of a season, and hopefully we don't see any kind of COVID delays or because that's the one thing too with these playoffs coming up. Got playoffs this week 18. We got 2 games on Saturday. Then the following week we got 2 games Saturday, 1 game Sunday, and 1 game Monday. I think is kind of what they're planning. Is Saturday. I'm not really sure of the full schedule for the playoffs, but I'm pretty sure it's Saturday, Sunday, Monday for games. And that's going to be just another incentive for a grind here. All right, I've got an axe to grind specifically on a team in the AFC. And Tino, apparently. And this is what I think. Apparently, the Bengals aren't winning a playoff game. I don't care what the feel-good story is about the Bengals. Like, I get that they're kind of competent. And I just think that we're getting maybe too sidetracked with just 2 recent wins over the Chiefs. Yes, the Chiefs. But that, like, to me, that Ravens win, I just felt like was a garbage win to try to talk about, look how great they are. Because in my opinion, the Ravens are so battered and so beat up that you're basically playing like a junior varsity version of the Ravens just with their secondary. So I didn't want to give Burrow too much credit for that win. Did give him a little bit of credit of the win over the Chiefs, a game that the Chiefs probably should have won if they had just played, like they just got out of their heads and just played completely off in the second half and just forget about Jamar Chase. Maybe want to remember him. Anyway, Is it apparent as to you as it is to me that the Bengals are a little bit overrated and will not win a playoff game this year?
If they play the Colts in the first round like they're supposed to right now, I don't think they'll win. Granted, I'm invested in the Colts. I keep alluding to it. I'm excited about talking about it because I'm just glad I'm at this point. I know there's a chance they got to play the Jaguars. I got all that, and then the Raiders and Chargers can tie. I heard that. I brought it up. I'm also on board of that. I'm down to lose a bet if we have something as ridiculous as that happen. But yeah, I gave flowers to the Bengals winning the AFC North when you're projected to finish last, and in a division as sound as that one is. I mean, granted, people were crowning the Browns, so it looked like there were some cracks in the divisional armor there. But the Steelers and the Ravens dominating that division every year, and they get over the hump, and they finally do the thing. And good for them, good on them. But yeah, I think they're beatable. I was saying when does it come to with the fact that they did draft Jamar Chase? And I love it. I think more teams should do that. Build around your quarterback for this reason. This is just as good for a team like the Bengals as winning the Super Bowl. I'm sorry. They weren't going to win the Super Bowl anyways. It didn't matter what they did. And so the fact that you won the AFC North is huge. And that's amazing for this rapport. And maybe in years to come, they build around the team and they can win the Super Bowl. But they weren't going to. But you draft Jamar Chase, and their offensive line and defense has held up, but they're not that good. Their roster just isn't that good. And I'm gassing up the Colts, and obviously we have a guy in Carson Wentz that could completely turn the ball over and eat at us. But right now they're projected to match up against them, and I just think they can do a lot of the things the Bengals do better. Like defense, they own it. I know the Bengals defense has played kind of above their heads at times this season, but they haven't been able to stop a nosebleed over the last couple of weeks. And then offensively, really, all you got to do is keep Joe Burrow off the field. I know it sounds, easier said than done, but they have the guy to do it. How do you slow the Bengals offense down? How do you slow any of these offenses down? It's the reason I like the Colts. Just run the ball with Jonathan Taylor, run the clock out, dominate time of possession. And if you force a turnover or get a couple 3-and-outs, all of a sudden they need to force things downfield because that's their MO of offense. So I think they're beatable. I wouldn't go as far to say they're overrated. They've definitely played way better than they should have. So they've outdone their expectation. But, to the same credit, I think they're a good team because I think they have some edge rushers that could get pressure on quarterbacks. And, they would need Sam Hubbard and company to really rough up Carson Wentz if they're going to beat the Colts. I think that's the only way they really hang in that.
All right, so that because I know you produce the show, you've watched me rail on this division for the last 3 weeks of just being like, this division sucks. I hate watching AFC North games. So here's why I think they're so overrated, because I just think of the teams that they've lost to. I don't look at the wins necessarily. Sure. I look about how you lose. And you lost heavily to the Browns at home, a team that we just watched last night look like garbage. Gagged versus the 49ers at home. Lost to the Bears. Lost by 20 to the Chargers. There's too many ugly losses for me. And finally, if we're going to settle the Penei Sewell, Jamar Chase debate, I think it's a wash, honestly, because he is the most sacked quarterback in the NFL. 51 sacks this year. You can look it up, but Jamar Chase has the most touchdowns for a rookie receiver. So, and they're one of the better passing offenses as a result. But because he passes so much, he's also second in interceptions with 14 picks. So for me, I'm just not going to forget the last 4 games just because you look great in one game at home against a Chiefs defense that honestly I thought was overrated. I felt like that 6 week stretch when you looked at who they were playing, really outside of Dallas, every other game I felt like was not very impressive from a defensive standpoint. Dallas just, of course, offensively, one game will look like world beaters and another time look like this is the first time they've ever played football.
Well, and so. I'll follow you with this because it's a balance, right? I think they're honestly the tug of war of these takes because exactly the Penei Sewell and Jamar Chase thing, but even just as a team, you want to get hot at the right time, right? You don't want to knock a team for beating good teams down the stretch. That's the point of it. But at the same time, when those bad losses add up, it's why I rip a lot of the NFC teams. So honestly, maybe I was a little hypocritical on that statement because it's true. I knock a lot of these NFC teams because of, their lapse in judgment and I'll churn at the Cowboys because of some of their ugly home losses, right? To the Raiders and to the Denver Broncos that, those games weren't even close, but I got to hold the Bengals to the same standard. Look, I'm on the Colts. I don't think they're going to win a playoff game. I just, I don't want to beat up on the Bengals because that's a long-suffering franchise. And, granted, the Giants have 2 Super Bowl wins. I can understand how it is to be bottom barrel and get beat up every year. And for what it's worth, Zach Taylor was supposed to get fired this year and replaced by Joe Brady. Doesn't look like that's going to happen.
Now he's the favorite for coach of the year.
I know, right?
Like, what a turnaround. What a turnaround. Yeah. For me, again, if I'm thinking of a team that I can't wait to bet against, because we always look at these first round matchups of potential, and they're going to get to host a playoff game, and they're either probably going to host, I think right now it would be the Patriots, actually, right now. Or I'd have to go look again just to see. I think it actually would be the winner between the Chargers and Raiders. If they would be playing KC and then they would play the Colts, or it doesn't really matter. You pick one of those AFC teams, wildcard teams, outside of the Raiders. I'm taking their money line underdog pretty much in every spot because they're going to be favored in those games as well. Yeah. So I can't wait to fade them. Probably don't feel great about it just because I think Joe Burrow is probably my favorite AFC quarterback right now. I just love watching him play, but at the same time, he drives me crazy with being crowned as like a top 5 quarterback from 2 wins when I can easily point to a lot of low points in the season as well. Like, to me, that I know that again we're looking at week 4, but I could not shake that Chicago Bears loss off of my, like, just looking at it, and I'm just like, where is this loss coming from? Because at least like the Chargers, you can kind of determine why. Divisional games, you know what I mean? You kind of let it slip away. When you playing these other games, like against those kinds of teams, and you look at like the Bears of just what they became and what they are, oh, it's so ugly. I want to lock in some futures with you though, Tino, because you've been talking about your Colts futures, and we have a couple of futures odds available going into Week 18 for the Indianapolis Colts. So if I want you to put this graphic up for me, Tino, because these 3 futures I think are the best ones that you can look at right now for the Colts. So first one being the Super Bowl at 20-1, AFC at 9-1, and then of course the darling of Jonathan Taylor for an MVP bet, which is probably a bad bet to make at this point, considering Aaron Rodgers is minus odds. However, you could go bananas in Week 18 against the Jacksonville Jaguars. So I pose to you, Tino, of your hard-earned FTN dollars, which one of these futures would you put a unit on?
So I'm going to re-bet the Colts to win the Super Bowl at 20-1. I got them preseason at 25-1. And nice. I bet that not knowing where they would be and seeing how they're seated right now and just kind of their path, I would actually love if they're the lowest seed in this totem pole, they somehow muscle it out. I know the Chiefs are there right now. Muscle that out and have to face the Titans in the first round, in the second round. That would be, for me, the ideal path for the Colts because I think they'll be able to handle the Titans. But yeah, I would sprinkle them on the Super Bowl. Look, not Carson Wentz all you want, but when I saw that acquisition, that's the reason I bet it. I cashed on a Bucks bet last year. I had Bucks Chiefs as like futures. I also sprinkled on the Packers, but I took the Bucks, I think last year at over 10-1 at some point, right as they traded for Brady. And I'm not comparing Wentz to Brady. I'm comparing the situations. Opportunity, right? Everyone just kind of overlooks it as, well, it's going to take a little bit for him to get there. We didn't know if Wentz would win the job. Okay, but if he does, the kind of player he is. The good of Carson Wentz fits the Colts so well. I can't even think of a quarterback that fits this team better than Carson Wentz when he's at his highest, because he can be a game manager, though he has a poop arm at times, can be remotely efficient. Like, I don't know. He does everything just well enough that with a guy in Jonathan Taylor behind him and the defense that they have, they'll beat a lot of the teams that you put in front of them. And I like Frank Reich as a coach. I credit a lot of what the Eagles did in their Super Bowl run to him. I know a lot of people try to say no, but that's not reality. Frank Reich left right after that Super Bowl, and the Eagles kind of struggled without him, and Doug Peterson is now no longer the Eagles head coach. Frank Reich's a super underrated head coach in the NFL, and he knew what he was getting in Carson Wentz. I'm also a fan of Hard Knocks this season. I know that has nothing to do with anything, but I did not like a lot of the offseason ones, and I didn't know how I feel about the in-season one. Seeing this team and seeing them in the season kind of ebb and flow as this 500 team battling through things, and you get to kind of you get firsthand seeing Jonathan Taylor's 5-touchdown game against the Bills and the process leading up to that. It's really, really cool, and kind of made me buy into this team even more. Again, that's not why I bet on them, but just something to talk about on the Colts as well. So yeah, I like what they have working for them, but really it comes down to Wentz. I think everyone knows that. I think it's Wentz and those turnovers. Yeah,
no, I'm with you, Tino, and I think the Super Bowl, I'm not quite there yet. However, I'm going to make a case for both AFC and MVP of why I think it's actually half decent odds. So First off, let's look at the matchups. Let's say they play the Bengals. I think they're going to win that game. Then you got the Titans and Colts going up against each other. Winner goes to the AFC Championship game. The Colts were up in that second game. Like, they just cocked and gagged, and the Wentz eventual turn, like, literally, that's like the only turnover he had all year, and it cost them the game pretty much, because that was pretty much the clear turning of the tide in that game, and the Titans came back and won that game. I think they can beat them again, or beat them this time in a third matchup. Then you got the AFC title game, which is probably going to be, I mean, based on an intro, it would be against the Chiefs. I'll take my chances in that spot at 9-1. Now, they're going to be underdogs probably in every game they play. So one of the things that you could do instead of taking the 9-1 is just bet their money line each time and just roll it over if you wanted. You get way better odds if you want to do it that. And then also, no matter what game they play, like, it doesn't matter. Like, I'm trying to think of what matchup that they would face and play where they would be an underdog or a favorite. There's not one that exists. It just, like, you look at any matchup, any other team that they play on a neutral field, they're likely going to be an underdog from any of the potential playoff teams. So now Jonathan Taylor, is probably, again, it's 14-1 for a reason. And it probably dropped to about lowest to 8-1 a couple weeks ago before Rodgers just went bananas. But he could easily have like a 4-touchdown, 200-yard day, and recency bias kicks in, and that immediately could sway the vote here, because I don't think there's any other quarterback that's going to be able to go off to be able to usurp Rodgers. Like, I think the Brady one is, the ship has sailed. So that would be the only case that I would make, is that essentially you're betting on Jonathan Taylor to go off and have at least, I would say, 3 touchdowns. In my opinion, I think if you're going to do that, I would just actually go to the multi-touchdown market, and instead of 14-1, just take his 3 touchdowns for, plus 2,000 or something like that instead. So that would be the case. I just think that you could get a lot of value if you maybe take that kind of approach with the Colts.
I like the AFC bet. I think that's smart. So we'll get to the NFC here in a second. It's not the team I'm going to mention, but I planned on doing that with the Rams. Although they're now the 2 seed, it's going to be harder to get that value on them. But I have an NFC bet with them, because I actually don't think that's a team that can win the Super Bowl. I think they could possibly make the Super Bowl because they're all in and they have a super team to do it. But I don't know if they'll get over that hump. Obviously, we could talk about Matthew Stafford not having won a playoff game yet. I think that has a big thing to do with it. And I was kind of banking on the fact that they'd be a 1 seed, which isn't going to happen. But I could see them getting to that game and then being dogs against the Packers, and I could kind of ride with it there. But they won't have the same path with the Colts, like you're talking about. If you have the Colts at 9-1 to win the AFC, and you can bet them as dogs through the AFC Championship game, I mean, you're talking about, that's a cash cow. You're sitting on a cash cow with that. So I like that.
Well, they're going to be a plus 150 to plus 200 underdogs. The odds are only going to increase as you go, kind of thing. Like, they'll probably be like, let's say 3-point underdogs in game 1. They'll probably be 4.5 in game 2. And then by the AFC Championship game, let's say it's against the Chiefs, it'll probably be 6.5. Probably right around there is kind of what I'm projecting based on that. I mean, depending on how the previous results go and if there's any injuries, but assuming everybody's safe. All right, now we're going to move to the NFC. Another wild card team that has to basically win to get in. It's the San Francisco 49ers. Super Bowl odds all the way up to 40-1. I threw this in here because I thought he could go off in this matchup, and playing against a high-profile opponent like that, I think Nick Bosa still could outside shot, maybe win Defensive Player of the Year. And then, of course, the 49ers win the AFC down to plus 2,000. I don't feel the same way about the Niners path the way I do about the Colts. So, Tino, I pose to you, of these 3, do any of these interest you in betting on the 49ers futures?
Maybe the NFC. I don't see this Super Bowl. And Nick Bosa, I don't think he's done enough to win Defensive Player of the Year. I take him for the NFC, but I love playing this game with it. It has to do with the quarterback, right? It's like Jimmy G, right? I mean, Jimmy G is why they lost that Super Bowl. I could say that. That's fine. It kind of is. Not entirely, but if you look at the tape, it is. He missed some throws. He missed Emmanuel Sanders that everyone highlights, but he was off way before that. The 49ers I think them going on the road actually helps them. We talk about on the Sunday morning betting show a lot. Friedman bets against.
Yeah, they're terrible at home. At home.
Especially against the spread. So I think this is a team, and it's similar to the Cardinals. It's like we're all playing chess and they're playing checkers. They know their strengths and weaknesses. They're not good at home, so let's just go on the road and give it our all, which is kind of a good strategy. I respect it, and I think they could make a run. But, I talked to you about this, and I wanted to allude to this because I didn't get to talk about it yet, and I plan on talking about it leading into the game. But I think Cooper Kupp is 160 or so receiving yards away from breaking Calvin Johnson's record. That's who they have to play this week. We already talked about the incentive the Rams would have at beating them. They have incentive in keeping Cooper Kupp in the entire game so we could try to break that record. I think they all know it. I think Stafford knows it. I think Kupp knows it. And what's crazy is he's been so good this season that's not even that out of the question, right? 160 yards receiving is like, it's doable.
Not at all.
Totally possible. And the 49ers defense, at least secondary-wise, hasn't been phenomenal this year. So, yeah, I think they have their work cut out for them just to get past this week. I think the NFC would be the best bet out of those three on the list there, but they have tough sledding this week. I'm not in on the 49ers going forward.
Yeah, the problem for me with the 49ers is their secondary, and then, of course, at quarterback, who is super green. And even if you put Jimmy in, it's not green, but it's turnover prone. And I think they're both turnover prone at this stage. I think that my issue with Trey Lance is I don't think he fully understands the full velocity of his arm strength. Sometimes I'll see these passes where it'll be like, 10 yards away, and it's like a 90-mile-an-hour fastball. And you're just like, man, you just have to get it to his hands. Like, you don't have to put it through his hands kind of thing to get there. And that was too many times I've seen that. So that concerns me. But, I mean, their front seven, I trust their front seven. I trust their running game. I trust their offensive line. Again, it comes down to quarterback and secondary. I feel like they can get beat over the top, and you can see that when you look at actually the wide receivers of how they've done against wide receivers this season. And then, of course, Trey, I mean, yes, they came back to win against the Texans, but my God, it was like the first half, like I'm just glad I didn't even spend that much time watching it, because every time I watched the highlight clip, it was just inept quarterback play. And that's like basically inept quarterback play and holding calls are probably my two biggest issues when I watch football, where I just get so annoyed and frustrated. So I think I'm with you, man. I don't know if I could actually legitimately feel great about taking them to win the Super Bowl, because, again, same thing. If they get to the summit, whoever they're playing, like let's say it's a repeat against KC, they ain't going to be favored. It's not going to be favored against Buffalo. Like there's just not a lot of teams that I think they'll be favored against unless there's injuries along the way. So,
well, my favorite part about the 49ers, I just want to throw this in, is how massive of a human being Trent Williams is and how fast he runs.
Silverback, man.
It's amazing.
Awesome.
Yeah.
No, well, they made it. That was a good trade. I mean, I pity to you on Washington for not salvaging that relationship, but I'm fine with him not being in the division anymore. I think you are too. So
he runs like a 4.640.
Yeah, well, and he's like 400 pounds, so he can basically crush anybody. I want to look at Week 18 games because, like you said, there's incentives not only for players but certain teams, like whether to get to certain metrics and benchmarks. A couple of games that I have already sent to you beforehand, but I have them circled. First game I just wanted to touch on with you is Cowboys -7 versus the Eagles with the total at 42.5. I'll give my thoughts here. I just honestly think, and I think they've already maybe alluded to it, I don't think the Eagles are going to play their starters because they already have the playoff spot locked in, and Jalen Hurts has been nursing like an ankle for a little while. I think it would be a good idea to maybe get a late season bye for some of these guys just to be able to be fresh and prepped for when they eventually play. I think it would be the Bucks or probably it'd be the Rams probably in the first round right now if they were a 7 seed or a 6 seed. Doesn't really matter. Whoever they're playing, they need to be rested because it's going to be a difficult matchup. The headliner, though, I think has to be 49ers Rams, because 49ers are +5 right now with an over-under of 44. And I mentioned at the top that the Rams have lost 5 straight games to the 49ers. Tons of incentive on both sides. Do you have any feel for this game? Because I was going to say with the Cowboys game, not to say that I didn't want to hear what your thoughts were, but I think the line is baked in. Like it's baked in that they're not going to play with it being at -7. So honestly, I don't really feel great about either side. Like I feel like that's too many points for the Cowboys in any circumstance, but also at the same time, I'm not betting on the Eagles at +7 if they're going to trot out. I mean, I wouldn't mind Gardner Minshew, but just
there we go. I was waiting for
starters.
No, let's talk about it. It could be a potential
right.
Cooper Rush versus Gardner Minshew matchup. I think 7 points is too much. I wouldn't actually bet this, but I just like talking about backup quarterbacks. I think it's my favorite thing.
Well, I'm not going to say that it would be like. I mean, obviously, let's be real. Right off the top, it's pizza. I love pizza. I love bad football. I'm still going to watch it.
For sure.
So that being said, though, when I think of this matchup, especially like it's a glorified preseason game. Like I already don't feel great about trying to like think about like leans on like player props or touchdown props. Like I don't know who's playing. Like you know what I mean. So you might as well just kind of take like some of the crazy long shots here. But that's kind of how I feel about that game. I would maybe look at the under at 42.5 as well.
Yeah, definitely. So, but I would treat it like a preseason game, right? The only reason I'd say 7 points is too much is that Dallas is on the road, so Philly is home, so you give them a little bit there. And we've seen both these backups before. It's an NFC East game. They tend to play each other close. The Eagles can run the ball. I don't know. You want to know what it is? They also have COVID issues, so that's why I worry about the Eagles. So I don't know how severe their backups are, right? Maybe the backups are out, but I would stay away from it. Just 7 points is too much for that game. We could talk more about the Rams game. I do like highlighting this. The problem with the Rams to me is just the second I buy into them, they just let me down.
It's the second Stafford throws a pick. It's when you look at in play and you're like, you know what? The Rams are down 7. They're paying plus 120 for the money line. I'm going to lock this in. Oh, Stafford interception over the middle. And you're like, are you freaking kidding? Like, yeah, I'm going to keep it G-rated on what I would actually say.
But it's like clockwork. Every time I bet, I think they lost every primetime game this season. Maybe. I could be over-exaggerating, but I bet them at least 3 times on primetime, and they've lost. They almost lost last week. They haven't gotten over the hump against the 49ers. So this was my advice. I don't love the no man's land of the 4 and 5, right? I've been battling this all season. So last week I was on Mean Streets and pretty much told everyone my advice was just literally take every dog plus the 5, which was the Cardinals, the Raiders. I think we had the Bengals in there at one point at 5. Just take them all. I think there was one more, and I was like, you're gonna go at least break even or go 3-1. I think they went 4-0. I think they ended up going 4-0. We're at the point of the season here where games are so close where you can't just be giving out these points. Now I understand why they do it in no man's land. Here would be my say on this game. If you like the Rams enough, I'll bring it up to 6. They're gonna win by a touchdown. If you don't, ride the 49ers money line. Like this is a game where I'm kind of going against my own advice here. And I'm just going to, because I saw so many teams getting the plus 4 and 5 win out, right? You either like the Rams enough that they're going to win at home by a touchdown or take the 49ers money line and go with the trend. Like I just don't think there's any other way to look at it. If I had to lean, the 49ers need it more. They're on the road. That, you know what I mean? They've beaten the Rams. You got to go and think the 49ers are going to win this game, but the Rams have added incentive. So I'm leaning 49ers money line, even though I kind of bashed them and said this isn't going to be a gimme. But at the same time, I'm just trying to look at this on how to bet it, not which one I kind of like more. I think if you were to bet this, I'm bringing the Rams up to either 6 or 6.5 and get some actual value on that, or go 49ers money line.
I think the actual real value is to take a defensive special teams touchdown.
Ooh.
Matt Stafford leads the league in pick sixes. Also, he's right up there with interceptions. Let's not pretend like Trey Lance is like super accurate as well. Playing on the road in this instance, I can't imagine they're going to make him throw too much with their run offense the way that they are, but he's going to have to throw it eventually. And I just think that there could be some shenanigans in this game, and you could probably get defensive special teams touchdown that covers both teams around like plus 220, plus 225. And then if you're feeling real frisky and want to go DGen, maybe you go Niners defensive special teams touchdown, and you can get that like plus 600 or something along those lines. The next game I wanted to talk about, though, because this game does correlate to the Rams-Niners game, is actually the Saints-Falcons game with the Saints at minus 4.5 and the over-under at 40. I have a bet where I'm leaning right now for this game. Tino, I want to hear your thoughts first before I share what I got.
I'm betting on the Saints. I don't feel good about it. Their offense stinks. I go to back for Taysom Hill all the time. I don't think the Saints even know what they paid for in Taysom Hill. I just think they like him as a person at this point, and don't even like him as a person. Well, I don't know. He was suiting up and he wasn't playing because he was nursing an injury, which obviously no one does in the NFL anymore for some reason. He was like a healthy scratch on the sideline earlier this season. Everyone was scratching their heads. Then he plays. And it's like, what is going on with this offense? They don't move the ball at all. Kamara suffered. They used him a lot more last week. They should beat the Falcons. The Falcons are not very good, even though Matt Ryan, I think, had a near rushing touchdown last week and got a taunting penalty and called it back. I was kind of confused on what was happening there. I was watching it in red zone. Matt Ryan, just Matt Ryan. I mean, so many things to say, so little time. But yeah, I don't buy it. I like the Saints. That's another 4. What'd you say, 4.5? It's another weird
4.5 with a total of 40.
Yeah, that's gross.
Yeah. So, and I'll get it. Yeah, for me, it's not even about whether the Saints or Falcons who's going to win. This is a hard under to me. Like, I would actually consider taking an alternative total and going like to low to like 33.5 or 34. Just one of those key numbers, right? Like to go to 32 or 34 and just kind of take that and just tease it all the way down. It's probably not the greatest advice, but it's just more, that's how, like, I would just still just take the under just to be safe at 40. But if you have the conviction like I do, I don't think these teams are going to combine to score more than 30. So for me, I just kind of look at the way the Falcons have historically played the Saints, notoriously have kept them like under wraps. And even then, offensively, it's not like they're dynamic. So it's not like they showed you stuff of how they could expose the Falcons. And then, I mean, if you even just use the Bills game last week, not a best example because it was poor weather, but half of those points that the Falcons scored were only because of Josh Allen consistently turning the ball over instead of just lowering his shoulder like he should have been doing all goddamn year. So for me, this game, I'm going hard under 40 right now. These teams notoriously like have combined to go under around 42, 43 points. And that's with like Drew Brees, a quarterback kind of thing. So you give me Taysom in this spot. I'm taking under 40. And now the main event, I guess the main event, it might not even be a main event because if the Colts beat Jacksonville, or pardon me, if the Jacksonville beats the Colts, both of these teams might just take the night off. It's the Chargers and Raiders. Chargers at -2.5 with an over-under at 49. When the Chargers host the Raiders, pretty much just spanked them and did whatever they wanted offensively again. I did read reports that I think Darren Waller is expected to be back this week for the Raiders. What are you leaning right now, Tino, in between these sides with a spread at 2.5?
My take on the Chargers has always been the same this entire year. They will win this game as long as they do not beat themselves. I am on the Chargers. That it makes no sense to me that the Raiders are here, but it's why I bet them last week. And if you follow Mean Streets, I've been saying it. We had this entire cluster of AFC teams. We had the Ravens in there, the Steelers are in there, and he's like, who's going to be the team? And he mentioned every team. I'm like, why'd you mention the Raiders? The Raiders are just that team. I said it would be so Raiders that they beat the Chargers and something happens next week that the entire team can't play. The first
like
round
Derek
is
Carr gets COVID or something like that.
It's
like,
the most Raiders thing. I always credit it to the first time Carr should have made the postseason. And Connor Cook Cook had to suit up for him. That is the Raiders. That is the Raiders. And it's so beautifully painful to watch sometimes. And here we are, Derek Carr, 9-7. They have no coach. He's had no Darren Waller. We have Hunter Renfrow really just bringing this team receiving-wise to the postseason. It's insane. I know they have a good defensive line, but they should not hang with the Chargers. What happened last game should happen again. But the Chargers playing close games from time to time. At home, they tend to start slow sometimes. I know you saw it with the Vikings. You saw it against the Steelers. They start slow. I mean, Raiders +3, if you get it over and maybe get a hook, isn't a terrible play in a game. I think that'll be very close. And there it is. That's the first one. I thought we heard it earlier, Josie.
Oh, yeah. My daughter's just here home from daycare, and she is doing laps around the house now upstairs over top of me.
That was the first one I heard.
Okay, so here's the one thing I would love to have, and I'm going to be putting this out here on Twitter probably later on as we get closer to Sunday. I want books to stop being cowards and offer me a Marcus Mariota anytime touchdown prop.
Ooh.
Because I think that this is a game where they could go full poetic justice and bring him in, and he gets to be kind of the hero. And I would love to bet that if you could get that, if a book could post that and put that at just a nice little sweet line at +1,000, I would bet that all day, every day. Because Derek Carr, that's the one thing about him. If you go look at the anytime touchdown score tracker that we have available at FTNBets, you can see his full game log of what his odds are every week and how he has not scored. He just does not run the ball. And when he does, I mean, he's famous for the fumble out of the end zone. Pretty much, I think he did it twice in the last 2 years when that happened. So you can tell that he's maybe a little more hesitant to want to run the ball. And then, of course, if you're looking at touchdown odds, I mean, you probably can't go wrong with looking at Darren Waller as well, just because he is tight ends in general, both of them, neither team has been able to defend the tight end this year as well. So
I know this. If we're just calling out bets, I don't know what sportsbook I need to get to, but just because I know we're going to transition, I am enamored with the Cooper Kupp breaking the record bet now. And last time he played the 49ers, 11 receptions on 13 targets for 122 yards. 160 isn't impossible. Give me a line on it. I want to.
He's going to get
make it a $25 limit. Just give me a promo.
Do this, man. Yeah, they're definitely going to do this because they know that people love to do the incentive bets again. And I mean, we even saw an interview come out earlier today. Cooper Kupp saying it feels kind of weird to break records in a week 18. Like, not sure if he feels like it counts. So I feel like money counts, and he's going to want that money that comes with the incentives. So that's kind of why I feel like you could say what it means historically, but financially, you'll want to play, and you're probably going to get like 15 targets in that game. All right, Tino, we're going to close the show now. We can do a rapid fire Q&A. We do these always at the end of the show. And as you know, I typically share pretty much everything leading up to this point with the guests so that way they can prepare and be ready. But this time, all questions that you do not know what's coming. So,
cool.
First question, a little layup. You've heard this question before. Just like to get people fresh and get used to the format. Tino, who you got winning the NBA championship?
I'm a Brooklyn Nets guy, so here I am. Brooklyn Nets. I am going, actually, I could segue this. Going to Nets Bucks. I will be counting 10 seconds on Giannis at his free throws because he still holds the ball too long. I don't care if he sped it up this year. He still holds it too long. I will be there. I will be, I think, section 200. Come find me if you guys are going to the game. I'll be the loudest one in attendance. And first game back since that. So since I went to the Eastern Conference Finals and they beat us. But this year is our year. Kyrie makes a return tomorrow, too, by the way.
He does, on the road against the Pacers.
Yes.
So,
yes.
All right, now, Tino, you coach youth football.
I do.
Would a quarterback you coach at least be competent enough to start for the Giants in Week 18?
So I do coach high school football, so I'd like to think a senior in high school would be able to handle this this offense better than Mike Lennon and Jake Fromm. I mean, Jake Fromm might as well be a senior.
Unwatchable game I could think of pretty much the entire season. Like
now, the only caveat is that we started a freshman at times last year. I don't think a freshman in high school could handle the Giants offense. That might be a little too much for him. He could barely do high school. But, yeah, I mean, it's bad, man. I like talking about backup quarterbacks to the point where you just chalk it. Like, people debating Jake Fromm or Mike Lennon over the last 3 weeks have, like, made me brain dead. It's like, why are you guys wasting your breath? It doesn't matter. But here we are.
I just say that because, again, with this Giants-Washington matchup coming up, it's just one of the most – I don't know. Like, again,
it's unwatchable. It's going to be
obscene. It's almost like an insult to football. Like, it's just of wanting to watch it. I can't even tell you right now who's starting for the Giants. I'll ask you, since you're a resident Giants fan, who is starting for Week 18 for at quarterback?
Well, so it's between Glennon's not going to start, and it's going to be a game time decision. I'd imagine they lead towards Fromm, but if you ask me if Fromm's going to finish out the game, I have no idea. But again, it doesn't matter. It doesn't. You could bring in the second coming of Christ in this offense. It isn't scoring more than 13 points. I don't care what anybody says.
Well, you want to tank too. You want to try to get a better draft slot as well. So, all right, next question: true or false? The Dallas Cowboys will win a Super Bowl in the next 5 years.
False. You have Mike. Well, if they get rid of Mike McCarthy, I'll have more faith. He's a silent assassin, Mike, especially in the playoffs. You always kind of feel kind of confident. We saw a glimmer of it last week. You saw some like little random hiccups with, it's timeout usage right at the end of the game there. They didn't have enough timeouts to stop it one more time. It's things like that I look at that I'm like, that's a playoff game. That's costly. So maybe you got it out of the way.
It's only worked out once that I could think of the entire season where he made what I would call just a blasphemous timeout. Like, what are you doing? And then Greg Zuerlein kicks the 55-yard field goal against the Chargers to win the game. And I was just like, oh my God, like, we actually won a game that, like, as a result of buffoonery. Like, I cannot believe that. So that was one of the few times, but I've been way too many times on the other side of Garrett and now McCarthy to feel great.
I was going to tell you too, Dak's kind of worrying me a little bit. I think,
man, I don't want to get too.
No, we're going to go on a tangent. You've been on this from the beginning, and I like to listen to my guys who root for teams and like pay closer attention to it. Everyone who's outside of the Cowboys world, like, love gassing up Dak for MVP and the comeback and the stories and all that. But now he's kind of dwindled. And like, you can look at a bunch of things and we're knocking receivers. And then now's the time. Dak's got to show up. Like, and it's kind of meant for him to like get all the grace and not, get all the glory because of all the injuries, Michael Gallup, so on and so forth, and the defense kind of underperforming. I think the table's set for him to take the next step, but he's got to do it. I don't know if you think he's going to do it, but that's the biggest question mark.
The issue with Dak is he's got running yips. So he doesn't like to run right now because of his ankle injury. I mean, I'm not going to say that a guy should run, coming off an injury like that, because of course that would mentally take a toll on you, that kind of injury. But you were like Dak to me was like a Cam Newton light. Like, he was able, like, he has the physicality and quickness that he could have done a lot of the same stuff that Cam does when he runs with the ball, and is way more accurate. Now his accuracy has slowly dipped as we've gone on, and once you get pressure on him, he just doesn't make the best decisions. And times like where guys are covered, he could easily take off and get 6 yards and just won't. And then, of course, I mean, I don't want
And the lingering thing with
ugh.
Dallas is still the Zeke and Tony Pollard debate, and I love it. I love every second of it. It's like a plethora of riches, and you don't know
But
how.
is it a debate though? Like, to me, it's not a debate. Like, Pollard is the better running back.
But it's how the debate is how they handle them. That's my point. And
that's true.
But I alluded to it with AJ Dillon and Aaron Jones, and it drove me crazy last year that it took the Packers so long to use AJ Dillon. I still don't think the Cowboys used Tony Pollard at like how they should use him. It just
100%.
It looks like it doesn't fit, and it's so interesting to watch from the outside because it would hurt my head. It hurt my head.
I'd say one more season and then the Zeke experiment is over because there's no more guaranteed money as a part of it, and running backs are interchangeable. So that'll be the last time you'll hear about Zeke on this show, at least as far as his impact, maybe just or lack thereof. All right, now we're moving on. Next question: Mac Jones versus Trevor Lawrence. Which quarterback would you rather have over the next 5 years?
Am I getting Mac Jones on the Patriots, or am I starting my own team?
Start your own team. Listen, franchise mode and Madden.
Trevor Lawrence isn't broken. The Jags are trying their best. He's still good. Imagine playing for the Jaguars right now. That's all I'm going to say. It doesn't work picture perfect like Mac Jones all the time. Everybody knew Mac Jones was supposed to go to the Patriots. Rarely does it happen that easily. And he did. And look how well he's flourishing. Not every rookie quarterback is created equally. I've already been saying free Trevor Lawrence. As a Giant fan, this is the first time I'm actually going to put it on the airwaves. I was going to save it for my Giants podcast tonight. Let's give it a year or two. Don't do anything. Let Daniel Jones run out and then trade for Trevor Lawrence on the low because he's dying in Jacksonville. It's like you'll get a number 1 pick basically for free. Like the talent's there. Like the talent is there.
All right, quick question, then follow up to that. As a Giants fan, your 2 first-round picks coming up in this draft, would you trade them straight up for Trevor Lawrence?
No, but I also wouldn't use both of them on an offensive lineman. Like that's what I'm saying. Like people look at things so narrow, and just because this worked the one time and that the NFL is changing so much, and every team is so different. Like everyone's got their own priorities, and I get it. Like, you want to block for your quarterback and keep him protected, but you haven't done it for 4 years. So now you're going to do it on his contract year in his last year, and you think the team's automatically going to get better. We haven't had an offensive line since 2007, and you want to use 2 first-round picks, one of them that's now outside the top 10 on an offensive lineman. Like, I don't know. Like, I guess the further it gets away, I'll use the top one on an offensive lineman, but I ideally wanted to trade up and get a defensive end. You need impact players in the NFL. You do, and I don't think offensive linemen, although it's not a sexy pick, I'm team offensive lineman. Doing 2 offensive linemen in the first round is the opposite of sexy and is the opposite of impact. You'll be able to protect your quarterback who you already broke, and we'll be doing the quarterback cycle in a year. So
and there's no real quarterback that you want to try to reach for in this type of draft coming up anyway. So next question, dynasty team question.
Ooh.
This is a start, bench, trade question. I'll
Okay.
give you 3 names. You got to tell me if you're going to start them in your team, bench them, or trade them.
Okay.
Jamar Chase.
Okay.
Jalen Waddle. Devontae Smith.
All right. I would this offseason. All right. So it's start, bench, trade, right? So I'll bench Devontae Smith, even though I think he actually has sneaky trade value in the offseason, because I think if he ends this on a high note, maybe has an impact play in the playoffs, you can get more than you probably thought you would have out of him. That team's just a disaster. They treat wide receivers terribly. And, I don't know. Like, it's just weird. They're a running team. So I love Jalen Waddle. I really, really like Jalen Waddle. I still kind of like him more than Jamar Chase, as weird as that sounds. And in terms of trade, like, who can you get more for? You're going to get more for Jamar Chase. Like, I would sell high this offseason on Jamar Chase while everyone's freaking out about it. But I wouldn't trade him for anything less than a haul, like a package. And you're going to be like, what is that? It's different for everyone. What does your team need? But I think you can get a lot for him. Maybe you trade him to a Burrow owner and give him that stack. Or maybe you trade for Burrow if you want to do the opposite and trade Jalen Waddle maybe in a deal for that. But yeah, I would trade Jamar Chase at his highest because wide receivers ebb and flow. Very rarely do they stay that consistent.
All right, now, Tino, next question. I want you to rank the following quarterbacks' careers out of 10.
Okay, let's hear it.
Ben Roethlisberger.
Okay.
Eli Manning.
Okay.
Phillip Rivers.
So out of just all of they each get a grade?
You're not grading them against each other. Kind of would be, I guess, depending on how you feel about their career, but just give them a career grade out of 10.
Yeah, okay. Just because I respect the grading scale and no one's a 10, I'm going to give Eli an 8.5 to get the elephant out of the room. 2 Super Bowls when he probably shouldn't have won either of them, especially the 2011 season when his offensive line was as bad as this year's is and everyone forgot about it. And he had his best season as a pro, but everyone, kind of craps on him for it. So Eli Manning, 8.5. I'm going to give Phillip Rivers a solid 7 because I think his numbers look great, but I'm tired of hearing that numbers are this, numbers are that. You can make statistics look like anything. He was good. He wasn't the reason the Chargers didn't win, but I'm giving him a 7 because they never did win anything. And I'm going to give Big Ben, I'm going to give him the second place spot. I'm going to give him an 8.
You're going to say Eli had a better career than Ben Roethlisberger.
I'm actually lowering it, and I'm giving Big Ben a 7.5 because of who he is off the field. I'm giving him. Well, obviously, there's some bias involved here. Of course, you're going to ask me an Eli Manning present. You're going to ask me an Eli Manning question. No, I will say this. Yeah, because I get the debate. I'll take Eli over him because I'm a Giant fan, and I kind of saw the struggle he went through in terms of how good of an actual quarterback he was. Big Ben's a better quarterback than Eli, but who would I take? 10 out of 10. I take Eli any day of the week. Iron Man, which Big Ben is not. Incredible person off the field. And I don't know. Big Ben wouldn't have survived on the Giants. He really wouldn't have. They didn't draft enough talent around him.
Yeah.
Big Ben was spoiled, man. Did you see the year they played against the Packers in the Super Bowl, how many receivers they had on that team? Down to
Antonio
the
Brown was wide receiver 3, I think, probably at that point. But
the Giants would never had that. We had an undrafted guy in 2011, and Victor Cruz, who everyone now knows as Victor Cruz. He was undrafted out of UMass. We got a walk-on.
Mario Manningham. Forever lives in lore.
Well, yeah, Henry Hynoski, Jake Ballard, these are the people we're playing with. So Manning had the Manning blood, and I'll take a Manning any day of the week. But I credit Big Ben's career. I think what he did was actually very unique, and I love one of my earliest memories of watching football when he won that Super Bowl. I think he was the youngest player or only rookie to. Yeah, only rookie to ever win a Super Bowl or whatever it was.
It was his second year.
He was the youngest ever at the time, which I just thought was, to put it
as a rookie, they started off. I think it was. Correct me if I'm wrong, but as a rookie, he started off either 12-0 or 13-0 with the Steelers.
And he's changed the narrative. I've been I was young enough, but I know that was the bus, right? That was the bus and the defense. Of course, and you give
Chris
respect
Chandler.
But he's made a hell of a career out of himself, making something out of nothing with a lot of these guys. And I also want to shout out for talking Ben and the Giants. One time I watched him lead a comeback against the Giants at home. He threw a drag route to Mike Wallace. Shout out to Mike Wallace with a name drop. He went 60 yards in 2.2 seconds and beat the Giants and ripped my heart out as a kid. But yeah, Big Ben 7.5.
All right, so I'm going to actually inverse that. I agree with your rating on Rivers at 7. I'm actually just going to flip those. I'm going to have Eli at 7.5 and have Roethlisberger at 8.5, just because you got one more Super Bowl appearance and just consistently winning as well. Because that's the other thing too, is that both of those Super Bowl wins, you were wild cards. It's 9-7, whereas Roethlisberger never had a losing season as a starting quarterback.
Yeah,
so again, which is incredible, just given. And then the other thing I just wanted to touch on before I move on to the next question is, I think a lot of people just kind of remember Ben over the last couple of years as far as being slow and whatever else. If you look at the first 5 years, very mobile in the pocket, took a beating.
It's why he's hurt. It's why he is the way he is now.
It's why he's so. All right, now sticking with the Giants theme, we're going to end it on this one.
Let's do it.
I was trying not to be insulting towards the Giants, but this one is probably going to come off a little that way, so I apologize. Since 2011, your last Super Bowl win, the G-Men have a bottom 5 record in the NFL. They're 70-106. Only the Jaguars, Washington, Browns, and Jets have a worse record in that span. My question to you is, how is that possible?
Commingling with ownership, not cleaning house entirely, poor drafting, bad contracts. I mean, list goes on and on. Hanging on to Eli's glory years too long. A plethora of things. You said, how do you get it better? And it's it's really tough. I mean, it's something we debate and argue about, in Giants land and in Giants Twitter every day. These guys are restless. And it's, yes, hold on. I know I'm in a rant. Benny, it is a Nip High football shirt. I'm glad he recognized
Nip High football rules.
But, man, the thing with the Giants, and everyone alludes to the boat picture. They were screwed before the boat picture, right? They do the record from that. They shouldn't have made that postseason. That was Ben McAdoo's only winning year. Odell single-handedly won several of those games at the wire for them on gigantic plays. I mean, gigantic plays. We're talking against the Ravens one time. He went 85 yards on a slant with 2 minutes left. Things like that. I don't know where the Giants are fixable, man. I really think the easiest thing to do right now is to clean house and try to make things work. The Giants don't do things that way. And the reason I'm saying it is because it's what they're not going to do. And it's something I do all my life. Wanted them to draft Micah Parsons. So he's not a Giant. He's a Cowboy. I know that. He's still a fantastic player. Well, let's not draft him. And here we are again, right? Devin White. Isaiah Simmons is starting to show himself, right? And then the Giants fan base is so impatient. Like, it's brutal, man. They adhere to the fan base way too much. That's a known thing. The ownership is the overwhelming problem, but you can't get rid of them. So right now it seems like they're going to promote Kevin Abrams, keep Joe Judge where he is, and Daniel Jones, and they're just going to hope for better next year. And maybe they can be better because they have all their money tied into the defense. And having a sound defense, I guess, is a good start somewhere when you're building from the ground up. But man, it is bad. It is bad.
The fan service comment you made to me resonates a lot when you think of the Saquon Barkley pick.
Yep.
Because highlight wise, when have you seen a running back that looked as good as he did since like Reggie Bush, like for example? Like it's just been like even Zeke at Ohio State did not have a highlight pack the way that Saquon.
And I know you said you didn't want to talk about Zeke, but you can credit Zeke to why Saquon's not getting paid next year. I don't think
absolutely.
I mean, I don't think
the only
he's
running
back
back that's worth being paid is Derrick Henry and maybe Jonathan Taylor next year if he still carries this over, but that's about it.
And that's it. And even then, now that Derrick Henry had Liz Frank, I mean, we'll see. And that's what we talked about. Oh, he'll come back. He's on this regimen. He'll be better than ever. He's inhuman, but eventually these shelf lives run off. Running back contracts, look at all of them. None of them have panned out. Zero. I really can't. Lev, Gurley, Zeke, all of the three I can think of right off the top of my head in the last couple of years have just bottomed out and quickly, right? So Lev twice, I think, right? Didn't Lev get a contract
with the Jets, the franchise tag debacle with the Steelers, and then the contract from the Jets where I don't even think he finished more than a season, like 12 games. I think he played with them before he was cut.
So fans are going to get their wish, right? Now, they didn't want Saquon. They wanted Saquon. Now they don't want Saquon. Saquon's going to leave. But it's like they look at every problem as, what it is. And then they look at it as a whole with the Giants. It's like there are so many problems top to bottom. It's like, that's what I'm saying. You want to start on the offensive line. That's not going to be fixed just by adding pieces, adding young guys who haven't gone 100% against NFL talent. They're going against grown men. So you're going to bring in two more baby offensive linemen. I know they're massive nowadays, bigger than they ever have been and more NFL ready. They were ready to kill Andrew Thomas. He's having an amazing year this year.
Well, this year he is. First year he was not good. And the fact that just with him, and he's a special case just because it was such a good offensive lineman year last year with Wirfs and Judge Wills and even Mekhi Becton, even though he's kind of fallen out of favor with the Jets again, he was highly touted as well. And the fact that all those guys were available and then they took Thomas first. So that was the one thing with the first year. Everybody else is doing well. He's not. The team itself is not doing well. So let's just judge him as being a POS.
I had Tristan Wirfs higher than Andrew Thomas on my record doing this. I have no problem saying it. But again, feast off what you have around you. The Browns had an incredible offensive line around Willis. Wirfs walked into a fantastic situation. Andrew Thomas's tape doesn't even get talked about this year because of the world falling down behind him. And last year was no different. The only difference was the health of the Giants' offensive line. So I just think it's an entire mess. The entire thing's a mess, and I don't see it getting better before it gets much worse. I recommend they blow everything up, which isn't going to happen. And, we'll see Joe Judge in Giants blue next year, who I like, by the way. I like Judge, but I just think there's systematic problems. It's not all on Judge, but you let go of Gettleman, you're going to bring in a new GM with a head coach. That just, it doesn't, with the same head coach, it just doesn't work. Just look at history. It doesn't work. So,
well, I don't want to keep beating people while they're down. I think it was fun, for the first 6 to 8 weeks to kind of watch the season unravel. And then when it gets to this point, it's like, okay, guys, you're just beating them now.
They're the worst team in the NFL. They're the worst product on the field right now.
It's tough. It's tough.
It's not close.
So on that note, I think we're going to get out of here at this stage, man. And before we go, Tino, I just want you to tell the folks at home, not only but some of the shows, but just how they can find you more, because I think a lot of people want to hear more what you have to say. And I think there's some shows that you're on, and I want you to tell people where they can find you.
Yeah, so head over to the FTN Network YouTube page. That's where most of my stuff is. Everything is really, other than BetsTV. So obviously we do all in football here at BetsTV, but we have betting with Benny and Tino. Benny is in the chat right now, blowing it up, loving the Nip Hive shirt. Love to see Benny doing well and supporting us. Mean Streets is every day. Monday to Friday. Jill's has stopped on Thursdays for some Thursday night picks. No more Thursday night football, but I'm sure you'll come on probably during the NBA season.
I'm not a stranger. I'm sure I'll be on the show eventually against him.
1,000%. You can follow me. So this is my Twitter. I'm not really a Twitterer, or I don't even know how I'd say that. Twitterer, but at Tino Rodriguez _. It's just where everything tends to flow here at FTN. And then follow my Instagram. I know I don't plug it a lot, but at Steven Rodriguez, super easy. There's an underscore at the end, but you can find all my video stuff there as well on my personal account. So follow me. I'm friendly. I'm not as social on social media, but I am a social butterfly in real life. So and
if you want to talk Giants, this is one of the men to follow. So that's all for me. I want to thank Tino joining me today. Make sure to check out all my writing content over at FTNBets, and make sure you can catch me every Sunday at 11 a.m. Eastern for Touchdown Town, where I'll give out my best touchdown scores of the week only on BetsTV. I want to thank you again for watching Dog Day Afternoon. I'm Gilles Gallant with BetsTV. Bon chance.